Welcome to yet another Kipinä podcast episode. My name is Joni Autio and this podcast is recorded at the Mediakeskus Lime. Today I have the honor of having a former United States Ambassador, Mr. Bruce Oreck, as a guest on our podcast. Mr. Oreck, welcome, and how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine, and please call me Bruce. I'm old enough that anytime somebody calls me Mr. Oreck, I feel even older. So just make it Bruce. It's easier.
Okay, let's make it Bruce. Okay, good. Can you tell us something about yourself? Introduction to our audience.
Well, I came to Finland 13 years ago at the request of then President Obama. And had the good fortune to serve actually as the U.S. ambassador here in Helsinki for 6 years, which makes me the longest serving U.S. ambassador in the history of Finnish-U.S. relations. And also I ended up being the longest serving ambassador in the entire Obama presidency. And I can assure you only that every day somebody in the West Wing woke up and went, "Are you kidding?" So, you know. But that's how it went. It was great. And then after my term of office, I stayed. I taught at Aalto, and I did a lot of public speaking. And I've since done investing in Finland and real estate stuff. And so it's part of my home life.
Yeah, so you can say that Finland has definitely made an impact on you.
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about the ambassador time. You served here in Finland between the years 2009 and 2015. Any good memories from that time?
Oh, terrific memories. It was very fortunate to serve under a popular president, and which of course Mr. Obama was, and so basically all of Finland was very receptive, and I'm one of those guys, very American in the sense that I don't take much vacation. I don't sleep much. I work 7 days a week. And so I was everywhere. My guess is I've probably been to more places in Finland than most Finns have. And, my approach was, I think a lot of ambassadors always have access to the people who are influential in government, people who are influential in business, that sort of stuff, and that's good and that's great. But equally interesting are the people who do the everyday stuff, from beekeepers to amethyst miners to just the sort of the person on the street kind of a thing, and spend a great deal of that time simply getting to know Finns and falling in love with both Finland and Finns. So.
Glad to hear. How do you see us Finns as a people? How are we as a nation or persons compared to, for example, U.S. citizens?
How long is this podcast?
Maybe the cliff notes for this one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I think Finns and Americans are very much alike in many, many ways, and yet at the same time extraordinarily different. And I think, that whole thing about, the quiet Finn and the private Finnishness and all that kind of stuff, very true still. Where Americans are wildly outgoing and talkative and noisy. That's not how I describe most Finns.
Yeah.
And, but by and large, we're just remarkably alike.
Yeah. You guys just do small talk better than Finns.
That we do any kind of talk better than Finns.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. Yeah. If I understand correctly, you were born and raised in New York. Am I right?
Yes.
And now Helsinki has won over your heart. So how would you compare between the two cities, New York and Helsinki? Any similarities there?
Yeah. Well, they're both cities. Because New York has got 10.5 million people, which is twice the entire population of Finland in a very small area. And New York is its own world. It's really not fair to compare New York to many other places. It's just that, it is, there's the USA and then there's New York,
okay.
So, but I think that for people who have, I would say the same thing for people who have not come to New York, you should go see New York. For people who have not come to Finland, they should go see Finland.
Definitely, yeah.
Each has its uniqueness and magic.
Perfect. You yourself, you're a businessman and have some kind of a grip on economy also. So how would you, the world is in a crisis at the moment basically, and definitely, or especially Europe, how do you see that the economical situation is going to be moving forward in the upcoming months or years?
Well, we tend to use the word crisis a little bit too loosely. The Great Depression was a crisis. The economy after World War II was a crisis. The fact that we're now facing challenges, many of those challenges being cyclical, meaning that they're predictable. They come and they go, and they come and they go. Interest rates go up and down. Consumer demand goes up and down.
Yeah.
There's, that's not a crisis. It's a cycle. Obviously, there are things which are exceptionally problematical. Certainly, the Russian invasion into Ukraine, the idea that you're going to use a military action to gain territory in this stage and age is particularly disturbing.
Yeah.
And that has been disruptive in unpredictable ways to food supply, fuel prices. Sorry, did I knock you off there?
No
back?
worries.
Let's see here. Let's see, I'm back. Sorry. So those sort of things are, and supply chain, disruptions. Of course, that was also impacted, by COVID, and so we have a lot of different, somewhat unique factors.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're in a crisis. I think we're facing sort of the challenges of the day, and certainly in Finland and the U.S. and in the Western economies, we don't. There's very little to compare this to the real crises earlier in the 20th century. Where people literally were, starving in Europe or starving in the Great Depression in America. We're not there.
Not there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully not at all. But
yeah.
Let's call it like the fact that I got to wait 6 months more to get a car, or I've got to wait 3 weeks longer to buy a new phone, or the grocery is out of some specialty brand of imported cookies. That's not a crisis.
No,
that's an inconvenience.
Yeah.
That's an inconvenience.
Yeah.
So.
I agree that we just have to kind of adapt to the situation and just face the facts that we don't have the materials and stuff like that. But I would, in my opinion, I think that the biggest problem that we have currently is with the energy in Europe, because we don't get enough energy into Finland and the stock prices are pretty high, and we are pretty afraid here in Finland, especially that we cannot afford to buy electricity anymore, which is kind of a basis of our everyday needs. So what do you see? How can we solve this energy crisis in your opinion?
Sure. So first of all,
sorry, I used the word crisis again.
And I would say that a challenge to energy is much more in the crisis category, right?
Okay, yeah.
First of all, shame on not just the Europeans but people around the globe for a continued reliance on resources for a fundamental component of your economy that you're not in control of, right? Yeah. Finland has neither oil nor gas, and therefore is dependent upon outside sources for a fundamental resource. Well, frankly, that's a bad idea. It was a bad idea today. It was a bad idea 10 years ago. It was a bad idea 50 years ago. And without getting into the whole discussion about nuclear versus non-nuclear, if energy is a critical resource, and it is, and since, to be honest, nobody has handled nuclear power more effectively than Finland, storage of waste, operations. This is a country that if Finland can't get nuclear right, nobody will get nuclear right?
Yeah.
Well, I frankly, and I'm not a big fan of nuclear per se. I'm not that's not always the right choice. But in the case of Finland, there were alternatives. And so today, complaining about pricing, I hear you. I feel your pain. not much I can do about it, especially since energy markets are global and you have traders. You know, the oil companies right now are making record profits. They have never made so much money.
Yeah.
There's not. This isn't certainly in the U.S. Let's say there's not a shortage of either gas or oil. It's just high prices. In Europe, there is a shortage, which may explain high prices. Yet at the same time, if I look around, I see every night, Helsinki is lit up like it's Times Square.
Yeah.
Right, everybody's neon sign. All their signs are lit up, and all the electronic billboards are lit up, and all that sort of stuff. Well, okay. The truth of the matter, you could, if you said, look, home electric rates are going to be fixed low enough so people can pay their electric bill. When you go to the store, the rates are going to go up. So does the store need all of those incandescent lights burning? Do the signs that glow all night long, do they really need to run? Do those giant electronic billboards need to glow all night long? If you make it cheap for business to use the power, they will. My guess is that if you looked at across Finland and you were to say how much of our energy usage in Finland relates to people's domestic use, a very small fraction.
Yeah, definitely. Right?
And so, when you close the business for the evening, turn off the damn lights, turn off the damn signs, right?
Yeah.
Who needs a billboard selling, whatever it is they're selling all night long?
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, there are solutions here that don't require people to break their furniture up and burn it to stay warm.
Yeah, definitely. And these are kind of solutions that are pretty easy to apply also to our everyday usage.
Yeah, exactly.
And it all basically comes down to just to adjust to the time that we're living in.
Right, and this comes to a question of in a democracy choosing what's important. If what is important is that people at home can pay their energy bill, then you need to make sure that energy bill is held constant because their salaries don't adjust, and that you incentivize businesses to turn off the power they don't need by raising their prices. Look, you could say to a business, look, from 9 to 5 or something like that, your energy prices will be like everybody else's, and before 9 o'clock or after at 5 o'clock, with the exceptions of things that have to be refrigerated, maybe, you're paying a rate that's 4 times as high. Yeah. People are going to decide whether they want to have the McDonald's sign lit up at 8 o'clock at night when the store closed at 6.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, those are some valid points. And I did some research on you, and I found out that the environment is a very important thing to you, and you speak quite passionately about green energy also. And also, I noticed that you had this the Zero Carbon Initiative during the Obama regime. Right. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, personally, I've been involved in the climate stuff and energy and green building for 30 years or more, and so there were the two initiatives really of relevance here. One privately was because I'm in the real estate business, was trying to teach politicians and builders better ways to build. I can show you how to build a home that's going to be much easier to heat and cool, much demands far less in terms of energy, demands far less in terms of water, and yet in every respect the house becomes more comfortable for the user.
Yeah.
And with virtually no difference in cost to the builder. We build the same way we've built for a long time. So the Zero Carbon Initiative was really a way to try and educate people about that in the U.S., builders and politicians. And then when I was in the embassy here, had been a program called the League of Green Embassies, which had sort of I got all of that and took that over. And then we ran around in Finland, and we redeveloped embassies, went back and showed people all sorts of things, how to reduce energy consumption and improve the actual result that you're living in. I'm very proud to say that we built in Finland the first LEED Platinum embassy, the energy standard LEEDs, a LEED Platinum embassy anywhere in the world, right here in Finland. So this was quite an achievement, and so we got that done. Again, was just trying to. A lot of that has to do with educating people. They don't. Energy still is magic for most people.
Yeah, I can imagine that, especially here in Finland, when we have this kind of a different kind of climate than in the US. So kind of energy thinking has been a part of the building or construction for many years ahead. But in the United States, it's a bit different because you guys have pretty much warmer climate there as well, or different kind of climates as well.
Well, Finland has done a lot of cutting edge stuff in green building, but like everything else, right? Everything moves very quickly.
Yeah.
And the fact that, the fact that what you did 20 years ago was great is wonderful. But is it still the best? Is it still cutting edge? Or builders are notoriously slow to adapt to changes, to adopt them.
Yeah.
And so the builder guys say, look, I've always built it this way, and that's how I'm going to build it in the future too, even though technology's moved on.
Yeah.
People hanging on to fax machines when nobody sends faxes anymore.
Yeah.
So, this is a real green building, real high performance building is a set of continuous improvements, not just, resting on your laurels of what you did in the past.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the consumer awareness of the energy efficiency is kind of a key part also, that the builders have to push their knowledge and kind of develop new methods that they can do sustainable stuff and energy clean housing as well.
Yeah. And of course, but again, I'm just going to be challenging because that's, I guess, what I am.
Yeah.
If I look around the city of Helsinki, the energy consumption per person is way up from the time I got here 13 years ago. Now, partly that's because we're using more electronic gizmos. We're constantly charging this device and that device, all that kind of thing. We've got a lot of more electronics and electric cars and stuff, but also the urban environment, street lighting, signage, electronic billboards, it's just more and more and more. Instead of saying, look, I'll give you another example, the highway lighting, and Finland has some of the most brightly lit highways anywhere in the world. But highway lighting, the real technology of highway lighting, has changed. You should have basically self-dimming lights so that when the cars are there, the lights are all bright. And when there's no traffic, they can drop down 80%. And you couldn't do that in the old days with mercury vapor lamps or sodium vapor lamps, but you can with LEDs. Yeah. Right? Instant on, instant off, or solid state. Street lighting. You look out the door, you look out your window, you see the same street lights that have been hanging there since, 1930. Now they've changed the bulb. Well, come on, changing the bulb, but, that's like going from a dial telephone that was black to one that was white. That's not changing anything. Yeah. All of that lighting should be adaptive. There's no reason for the streets to be lit the same at 2 a.m. as they are now, as long as they're motion sensors. They sense any motion in the street, pops back up. But when the streets are empty, all that lighting could dim down 50%, 60%, 80%, right? Yeah. And huge energy savings. Yeah. Anyway, the point is that technology has moved on, and the ability to, and the expression of that technology in the urban environment hasn't happened. And therefore, we're using more power instead of using the technology to let us use a lot less power. Yeah. Very interesting points and good ideas, because I think that the technology is there, but we just have to implement it in creative ways to just save the energy. Yeah. Again, it's a question of democracy. Yeah. Choose what you want to do and then do it. Yeah, definitely. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Let's go over to another topic of the podcast, which is leadership. And I know that you have worked with one of the greatest leaders of our time, especially which one I value very high. So how was working with Barack Obama as your boss? Oh, he is annoyingly good. You always, there's an expression, you feel like a nickel looking up at a dollar when you're with Barack. Very bright, very insightful, extremely charismatic. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in the campaign. A friend and I we were working very hard, and I was a volunteer in the campaign, and traveling all over the country, voter registration, talking to voters, going out, promoting the candidate, raising funding, money, all that stuff. And there was a point in the campaign where we lost one of the early fairly early primary to Hillary that we should have won.
Okay, yeah.
She just beat the pants. And we were tired. We've been on the road every day, away from our family. My buddy and I, who both in the campaign, decided that after that evening, we were going to go to Barack and say, look, it's been a lot of fun, but we're going to go back to our real lives. And he had a group of his sort of this inner circle of people like myself. And he said, look, before anybody says anything, let me just have a minute to talk to you. And he gives a speech about his vision for the future and his vision for the world and his vision for America. And he looks around the room. He says, all I want to know is, are you with me? Right. And there, my whole resignation went right out the window. It was like, oh shit, that's done.
Yeah,
and so
I did not write
around.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. God, okay, I'm with you. So, he's one of those leaders. He leads. Leadership is about inspiration. There's an expression again in English, you cannot push a rope.
Yeah.
Leadership is about knowing how to motivate people, how to pull the rope. Right. Leadership is not about command. Leadership is about inspiration and vision and confidence and integrity, those sort of things. And Barack he's really a master of all of those things.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you answered basically to my next question that what are the basic characteristics of a good leader? What do you think? You said that inspiration and being motivated and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because to lead means that you have to have generated or have in hand followers. Yeah. People who follow your lead. Otherwise, you're just at your murky in the countryside talking to yourself.
Yeah.
You have to touch, move, and inspire people. Say, look, I get it. That person has the right ideas or the right vision or the right direction, and let's all get in here and pitch in and do our part. That's real leadership.
Yeah.
And and there are times when being the general in the military and the guy says, take that hill, the soldiers take the hill.
Yeah. No
but that's command.
Yeah.
Right. That's command. That's different. And I think that, just that's what makes a great leader.
Yeah. Who do you think that are great leaders apart from Barack Obama, obviously?
In the world today, I think they exist. They exist big and small. I would hate to leave that conversation framed only by one about the political leadership, right?
Yeah.
Because, there are a lot of important political leaders who may have good moments, they have not so good moments. And then there are people who work, hard every day at their job somewhere in public service. And maybe they have a small team of people. It might be in health. It might be in policing. It might be in education.
Yeah.
Right. We've all can point to teachers we've had in school, whether in grade school or middle school or in college, who were inspiring, who really led us to a passion. Right. So leadership isn't just about political leaders. Leadership is something that exists throughout society. And we all long for it. We all look for leaders.
Yeah.
People who can help us form direction and purpose.
Yeah, so basically you're saying that we all should thrive to do an impact in whatever we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Great parents are great leaders.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. That was actually...
Yeah.
That's actually an excellent answer to the question, because mostly when I ask this question, people are saying like business leaders or politicians, but we just have to think to the lower stages as well, or lower stages. Everything is important in my opinion as well.
Well, I think if to be pretty blunt about it, I think one of the problems in the world today is that we have abdicated this sense of leadership and leadership responsibility to either some big successful business CEO or a political leader, right?
Yeah.
They have their own agendas. They have their own problems. And life is very complicated. We need that same quality of great leadership in every aspect of what we do. And societies rise and fall when the sense of leadership extends beyond just a highly visible, a business leader or a political leader.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So,
great. Looking back at your career, can you name a definite highlight from that time? Oh,
my retirement. That was a real highlight.
Retirement.
Yeah.
I'm done with this. Now I get my free time.
I'm done with this shit. I serve my country. I'm the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk with this. I'm sorry. I'm going to plug the phone because it's telling me that it's unhappy with its electricity. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of them. I mean, I've met an awful lot of really, really interesting people. That's, I think, is been a highlight for me. Is not just the business leaders who I met who because I was an ambassador I would have never otherwise had access to.
Yeah.
Not just the academicians and other sort of scientists, and I met a lot of them, a lot of great military folks. But especially in Finland, I would say this, that somebody shows up and knocks on your door and invites themselves into your house. That doesn't happen much in Finland, right?
Yeah.
People just don't, hi, what's going on? And that does happen in the U.S., but to be able to come to Finland, and because of my position and because I was sort of out on the street and I was, chatty,
yeah.
I literally forced my way into people's homes, sit down at someone's table at a restaurant and just force the conversation.
Yeah.
And the adventure of that, you meet so many interesting people on so many interesting journeys, so many interesting stories to tell, right?
Yeah.
And so if you ask me, that's really the highlight.
Yeah.
Sure, great to meet famous and important people, but equally important to meet someone who you've never heard of, who is doing something amazing in their life. Whether they're struggling with a child who has a mental or physical impairment, or whether they're serving a community in some way, or a teacher who goes beyond the call of duty, the doctor who does amazing stuff, the beekeeper who's doing, great stuff. Yeah. They're wonderful stories, interesting people.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, indeed. I can just imagine that the people's reaction here in Finland when you just come uninvited to their dinner table. So that can be very interesting also.
I have a thing about pizza. Pizza is finger food. You pick up a pizza slice, you eat with your fingers. Well, not in Finland. Everybody sits down with a knife and fork and cuts up their pizza. Well, that's just wrong.
Yeah,
the only thing more wrong than that is pineapple pizza. Another fundamental wrong. There's no justifying pineapple. Anyway. I literally, when I was in Bachelor, I'd be walking down the street, it'd be, spring, summertime, with people being outside, and someone would be sitting there, some family would be sitting there having pizza with a knife and fork. Yeah. I would literally sit down at their table outside and say, look, what is going on here? This is not how you eat this damn food with your fingers, Pick it up and eat it the right way. And they just look at you like you are crazy. But then I'd get up and I'd leave and I'd go, not the U.S. ambassador. Okay, they didn't call the police.
Yeah.
But
okay. Okay. The next time we're going to go to dinner with my wife, I'm going to say Bruce said that I can eat pizza with my hands. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what else you can eat with your fingers. And actually, this is true. You can look it up on the books on good manners. It is actually polite to eat asparagus with your hands.
Okay.
You can pick up a stalk of asparagus and eat it with your fingers. Now, you won't see that much, but if you read the books on manners, they'll tell you that's okay.
Okay, interesting. I have to try this with my mother because she's very tricky.
Yeah, try that. Yeah. And boy, when she smacks you, don't blame me, buddy.
No. Okay, great. Yeah. I just have a few questions left. If you could pass on one advice to anybody, what would it be?
It is to live your best life. It's fast. It's over quick. You think you got time and you don't. And I'm not talking about people dying before their time. I'm not talking about the tragedies of, some kid getting cancer or someone getting hit by a car. In just the regular course of your life.
Yeah.
It's ultimately very short. And we spend so much time, so many years worrying about rules that were not written for us, about what somebody else approves of or doesn't approve of. Sure, I get it. They're important rules. Don't rob a bank. Don't go speeding through a neighborhood. Caring about what others, your impact on others is important when your activity directly harm somebody else. But the fact that somebody doesn't like the fact that your hair is long or your hair is short or your beard is one color or another or your sexual orientation or your clothing choice, right? No, get over it.
Yeah.
Live your life, right? Be on your own adventure. And then that way, the journey that you have, the life that you live is yours. No, the idea is not to go out and harm other people, but be honest about it. The things that we generally get worked up about, look at what that person is wearing, or look at how they're doing their so-and-so, or I don't approve of that.
Yeah.
Does that really harm you? No. Right? It's just pissing me off. None of my business. I'm not in charge of that department. Take care of myself. Take care of my own life. Live my own best life. You live your own best life, and I guarantee you, as a society, everybody will thrive more and be happier. I know we're in the happiest country on the planet, but you can still be happier.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you. That was a great advice. And I think that it's very important considering our time that we live in, because we all have our careers and we just have to be better and better all the time. But we forget to hit the brakes every once in a while also and just see that what we have already.
Well, I mean, are you having fun? I get it. Not every moment of your life is fun. But basically, if you're not finding joy and fun and pleasure and excitement in how you're living your life day to day, do something damn different, because you're going to come to everyone comes to the point in their life where they look back, and you're going to ultimately be confronted with a situation where you have two statements you could make. One, you could look back and say, gee, I wish I had done that. Or alternatively, you could look back and say, wow, I can't believe I actually did that.
Yeah.
Right? Or I actually got to do that, or, whether it's skydiving or bungee jumping or camel riding, I don't care what, whatever it is, right? I want to be as best I can with a guy when I'm sitting on my deathbed looking back going, man, I had a great adventure. I regret so little. I made choices about living the big life. I don't want to go, I could have done this, but I didn't, and I should have done that, and I'm sorry I didn't. I don't want that. And so, live your life with a realization that you want to die with adventures and memories and great stories, and not with regrets about what you didn't do.
Yeah, definitely. The life not lived.
So,
yeah,
the life not lived.
Yeah.
Breathing and living are different things.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great way. And I think that that's about wraps up this podcast episode. Thank you, Bruce. It was definitely a pleasure talking with you. And I found very much inspiration from your talks, and hope to hope to also meet you in person someday and eat some pizza by hand.
I'm not hard to reach. I'm somewhere around. I'm actually astonished we got through this entire half hour. We didn't say a word about NATO. Good.
Yeah. I was actually pushed to talk about NATO, but I thought that it's best to skip that for another episode, maybe.
I will just say that I think it was the right choice, but I've always thought it was the right choice. So
yeah, definitely.
I will tell you. I know we're over time here, but I'll tell you one story. You can cut it out if you want to.
Yeah.
One of the very first things I did when I came to Finland was I had the pleasure of my first meeting with Sauli Niinistö.
Yeah.
And he was then the Speaker of the Parliament before he was president, before he hadn't even announced he was going to run. I went to see him, and he graciously saw me, and the first conversation I had was, look, NATO. And he went, no, never. And I have great respect for Sally. He's a very smart guy. He's a very thoughtful man. He's got an interesting wealth of knowledge and how he thinks about things. But it was just interesting. I haven't seen him, just haven't crossed paths with him because I'm not in the political scene. But I do. If I happen to see him on the street, I'm going to go, hey.
Told you so.
Hey, remember? I told you so.
Yeah, well, maybe better later than never.
Yeah, better later. That's absolutely. No, it's a great thing. I'm glad Finland has made that choice, and that's going forward. So, anyway, well, it was a pleasure. Thanks for the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.
I'll see